For the definitions of people who may not be aware of religion in Africa itself, there's a discussion that goes on. And you have it on different levels. But basically, there's a discussion that happens where people propose that in Africa, originally there was traditional religion. And the people worshiped the river, or they worshiped the tree, or they worshiped the sun. And then later on, that religion evolved into a higher level, or changed into a higher level with the Semitic people coming into Africa. And then they say there's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This is what you get in a lot of university courses that you take. I want to challenge that root definition right from the beginning. What we are finding from going to the primary sources, going to the sources of the people themselves, and not other people who wrote about them, is that we find that Africa has been a place of multiple beliefs from the beginning of time. There have been people who have a number of different beliefs. And this is the way Africa is. If you go to the African continent, especially in traditional Africa, and you go to the city, you will find people of many different nations in the marketplace who are discussing with each other, who are trading with each other, who understand different cultures from different parts of the continent. It is a continent that is very much diverse in its languages, in its culture, in its expression. As far as monotheism is concerned, from the teachings of Ptahhotep, and this is published, or this was first published in the 5th Kemetic, or you could say Egyptian dynasty, around 2388 before the Christian era. Ptahhotep, believed to be a sage who served under the king Asa, was reported to have said, "Do not scheme against people. God will punish accordingly. If a man says, 'I shall live by scheming,' he will lack bread for his mouth. People's schemes do not prevail. God's command is what prevails. Therefore, in the midst of peace, what God gives comes by itself." And so you will find in this book, which is considered by many historians to be the oldest text that we have, written text, in these teachings of Ptahhotep, it is recorded that monotheism was alive and well. Also in the Middle Kingdom of ancient Kemet, or ancient Egypt, the well-known pharaoh Akhenaten, who was somewhere around 1358 BC to 1340, he expressed his dedication to the sole God, Aton. And he was expressing a belief that focused not on the different gods, not on the sun, but on the power behind the sun. The power behind the sun. This is in ancient Egypt, which of course is in Africa. And within the Psalms of Akhenaten, you find the following. "How manifold are your works, though hidden from sight. O sole God, besides whom there is none. You created earth according to your desire, you alone. All people, cattle, and all kinds of animal, all on the earth that walks on legs, and all on high that fly with wings. You set every person in his or her place and satisfy their needs. All have food, and their time of life is determined. Their tongues differ in speech, and so do their characters. The colors of their skins are different also, for you distinguish the people. How excellent are your ways, O Lord of eternity." This is an African pharaoh speaking. This is before the time of Moses, before the time of Jesus, and before the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is in Africa. And you will find other writings throughout the continent. You will find in Shona writings the strong belief in one God, the Great Spirit. You will find in the writings of Langi, of Uganda, also the concept of the Great Spirit. You will find this throughout the continent. So really, the root definition of Islam, meaning submission to one God, or the concept of monotheism, is something which is not new in Africa. It is something which is not new throughout the world. But the only thing that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did was to confirm what came before him, was to confirm the natural belief or the natural tendency in all human life to recognize the creator of the heavens and the earth. And this is a very important definition for us to begin with. Because when people speak about Islam today, when they try to define Africa, we tend to do this in a way that separates instead of a way that unites. I'm still trying to figure out how they separated Africa from Asia. Because this didn't happen until the European colonial period. It wasn't until then that the Red Sea divided Asia from Africa. If you look at the people who live along the Red Sea, you will find that for the past 10,000 years, their cultures have been one. People have been traveling across, back and forth of the Red Sea as though they were traveling from one city to another in America. It is only when the European colonial system came that they said, if you're on the eastern side of the Red Sea, you're an Asian. If you're on the western side, you're an African. This is a definition that really, when you actually go into Africa itself, when you really try to figure it out or to put a racial feature upon what is an African or what is an Asian, it starts to get ridiculous. And so it is the same thing with Islam. When you start to divide people up or start to categorize Islam, you will realize when you go to the root sources of Islam that it is ridiculous. Because from the beginning of the message of Islam, or the last message of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had with him people of all different nations.